What if the sentence that made you strong was also the sentence that slowly destroyed you? Be a man. 3 words. Simple. Familiar. Almost harmless. But for millions of men, those words did not build strength. They built a prison. They taught you to swallow pain before you even knew how to name it. They taught you to smile when you were exhausted. To provide when you were empty. To stay calm when your chest was collapsing. To say, "I'm fine," when some part of you was quietly begging for help. And here is the part society does not want you to notice. A man who cannot express pain is easier to control. A man who believes his worth depends on performance will keep working, keep giving, keep proving, even when there is nothing left inside him. A man who has been trained to confuse silence with strength will suffer quietly, and the world will call it discipline. In this video, we are going to strip away one of the most dangerous lies ever sold to men, that real strength means carrying everything alone. And by the end, you will see something most men only realize after years of damage. You were not weak because you felt pain. You were wounded because you were told to hide it. 1. The invisible weight men carry. Imagine waking up every morning with a weight on your chest. Not a weight anyone can see. Not something your coworkers notice. Not something your family always understands. But it is there. You carry it into your car before work. You carry it into meetings. You carry it while checking bills. You carry it when your partner asks why you seem distant. You carry it when your children need you to be present, but your mind is still trapped inside pressure, debt, deadlines, regret, and silent fear. And because you are a man, you were taught not to call it pain. You call it responsibility. You call it being tired. You call it just life. You call it handling it. But deep down, you know the truth. Some days, you are not handling it. You are surviving it. From the moment many boys are born, the contract begins. Be tough. Be useful. Be successful. Be brave. Be productive. Be respected. Be controlled. Do not cry. Do not complain. Do not need too much. Do not break. And if you do break, do it quietly. This is the burden that rarely gets spoken about honestly. It is not just pressure. It is identity. Men are not only expected to carry responsibility. They are expected to become responsibility. A woman may be loved for simply being present. A child may be loved for simply existing. But many men learn early that love often feels conditional. Achieve something. Provide something. Protect something. Fix something. Become something. And if you cannot, shame is waiting. This is why a man can be surrounded by people and still feel completely alone. He can have a family, friends, co-workers, a full phone, a full schedule, and still feel like there is no safe place to put down the weight. Because somewhere along the way, he learned that his pain makes people uncomfortable. Not always because people are cruel. Sometimes because they simply do not know what to do with a man who is no longer performing strength. A man who laughs is acceptable. A man who works hard is admirable. A man who provides is respected. But a man who says, "I am not okay," that makes the room go quiet. And in that silence, many men learn the final lesson. Never say it again. 2. The Machiavellian trap behind "Be strong." Machiavelli understood something most polite societies pretend not to know. Power is not only maintained through force. It is maintained through stories. Tell people the right story about who they are supposed to be, and they will police themselves. That is the dark genius behind the phrase, "Be a man." It sounds like encouragement. But often, it functions like control. When a boy is told, "Boys don't cry," he is not simply being taught emotional control. He is being taught emotional obedience. When a teenager is told, "Man up," he is not being guided into maturity. He is being trained to disconnect from his own inner warning system. When an adult man is told, "Stop being weak," he is not being strengthened. He is being pressured to hide the exact pain that needs attention. This is where society becomes surreal. It tells men to be emotionally available partners, but punishes them when their emotions are inconvenient. It tells men to be good fathers, but gives many of them no model for tenderness. It tells men to lead, but mocks them when leadership becomes heavy. It tells men to protect others, but rarely asks who protects the man. It tells men to speak up about mental health, then quietly judges them when they do. This is the artificial society, polished on the surface, brutal underneath. It praises vulnerability in slogans, but still rewards performance in real life. At work, the man who admits he is overwhelmed may be seen as unstable. In relationships, the man who opens up may fear becoming less attractive. Among friends, the man who talks about fear may be met with jokes, silence, or quick advice instead of real listening. So he adapts. He becomes funny instead of honest. Busy instead of present. Useful instead of vulnerable. Calm instead of alive. And slowly, the mask becomes so familiar that he forgets it is a mask. That is how many men lose themselves. Not in one dramatic collapse, but in thousands of small moments where they choose silence because silence feels safer than truth. 3. The boy who was trained to disappear. Think back to childhood. A boy falls and scrapes his knee. His first instinct is to cry. Not because he is weak, but because pain is real. But before he can fully express it, someone says, "You're okay. Get up. Don't cry." At first, it seems harmless. But the lesson begins. Pain should be hidden. Then he gets older. Maybe he struggles in school. Maybe he feels lonely. Maybe he is bullied. Maybe he feels like he is not enough. But instead of learning how to speak, he learns how to perform. He makes jokes. He gets angry. He acts like nothing matters. Because anger is often the only emotion boys are allowed to show without losing status. Sadness looks weak. Fear looks weak. Need looks weak. But anger can still look powerful. So many men do not become emotionless. They become emotionally restricted. They are allowed only a narrow range of expression: frustration, ambition, sarcasm, silence. Everything else gets buried. Then that boy becomes a man. Now he has a job, bills, maybe a family, maybe aging parents, maybe a mortgage, maybe people depending on him. And when life hits him hard, he reaches for the only tools he was given. Work harder. Say less. Push through. Don't talk about it. The world sees him functioning and assumes he is fine. But functioning is not the same as healing. A man can answer emails while falling apart. He can pay bills while feeling worthless. He can sit at dinner with his family and feel 1,000 miles away. He can lie beside someone who loves him and still feel impossible to reach. And because he cannot explain what is happening inside him, he may start to believe something is wrong with him. But often, what is wrong is not the man. It is the training. He was trained to disappear from himself. 4. The provider wound. One of the deepest wounds many men carry is the provider wound. It is the belief that your value rises and falls with your ability to produce. Lose your job, and suddenly it does not just feel like financial trouble. It feels like identity collapse. You do not simply think, "I need another income." You think, "I failed." You think, "I am less of a man." You think, "What will they think of me?" You think, "How can I look my family in the eye?" This is why job loss hits many men so deeply. It is not only about money. It is about shame. And society knows how to exploit this. A man who believes he must constantly prove his worth will tolerate exhaustion longer than he should. He will accept disrespect if leaving feels irresponsible. He will stay in environments that drain him because he has convinced himself that sacrifice is the price of being a man. He will confuse being needed with being loved. But there is a brutal truth here. If people only value you when you are useful, they do not see you. They see your function. And this is where many men become invisible inside their own lives. The paycheck is seen. The labor is seen. The problem solving is seen. The emotional cost is not. The father who works overtime and comes home silent is not always cold. Sometimes he is depleted. The husband who seems distant is not always careless. Sometimes he has no language for what he is carrying. The man who sits alone in his car before walking into the house is not wasting time. Sometimes he is trying to gather the last pieces of himself so he does not bring his pain through the front door. This is the kind of pain society rarely honors. Quiet pain. Functional pain. Responsible pain. The kind of pain that still shows up to work. 5. The difference between stoic strength and emotional numbness. Many men misunderstand stoicism because society taught them the wrong version. They think being stoic means feeling nothing. Never reacting. Never needing. Never breaking. But that is not stoicism. That is emotional numbness wearing a philosopher's mask. The Stoics did not teach men to deny reality. They taught men to face reality without being enslaved by it. There is a difference. A numb man avoids his emotions. A strong man observes them. A numb man says, "Nothing affects me." A strong man says, "This affects me, but it does not own me." A numb man suppresses pain until it leaks out as anger, distance, addiction, or burnout. A strong man has the courage to confront what is happening inside before it controls his life from the shadows. Seneca understood that hardship can shape character. But hardship only shapes you when you process it. When you learn from it. When you allow it to reveal what needs to change. Unprocessed hardship does not make you wise. It makes you guarded. It makes you reactive. It makes you suspicious of tenderness. It makes you confuse peace with isolation. This is why so many men say they are calm when they are actually disconnected. They say they are disciplined when they are actually afraid to feel. They say they do not need anyone when the truth is, they stopped expecting anyone to understand. Silent authority is not about becoming an emotionless machine. It is about becoming a man who cannot be manipulated by his emotions because he is no longer afraid to face them. That is real control. Not suppression. Awareness. 6. The mask of control. There is a particular kind of man America produces very well. He looks composed. He answers quickly. He works hard. He does not cause drama. He keeps his problems private. He pays what needs to be paid. He handles what needs to be handled. From the outside, he looks solid. But inside, he is tired in a way sleep does not fix. He wakes up already bracing for the day. He checks his phone and feels pressure before his feet touch the floor. He scrolls through news, bills, messages, expectations, other people's success, other people's outrage, other people's demands. And before he has even looked in the mirror, the world has already reminded him. You are behind. You need more. You must do better. You cannot fail. This is modern masculinity inside a machine. The machine does not need you healthy. It needs you productive. It does not need you whole. It needs you available. It does not need you emotionally alive. It needs you quiet enough to keep moving. So you wear the mask. Confidence. Control. Humor. Competence. But the mask has a cost. Every time you wear it to hide pain, the distance between who you are and who you perform becomes wider. Eventually, people may love the version of you that survives. But not know the version of you that suffers. And that creates a loneliness that is hard to explain. Because you are not alone physically. You are alone internally. You are surrounded by people who know your role, but not your reality. 7. Why men do not ask for help. People often ask, why didn't he say anything? But many men did say something. Not directly. Not clearly. Not with perfect words. But they said it through withdrawal. Through irritability. Through exhaustion. Through drinking more than usual. Through working constantly. Through losing interest in things they once loved. Through sitting silently in the dark after everyone else went to sleep. Through saying, I'm just tired, when they meant, I don't know how much longer I can carry this. The problem is that society often waits for men to communicate pain in a language they were never taught. And when they fail to do that, it calls them distant, cold, angry, avoidant, emotionally unavailable. Sometimes those labels are true on the surface. But underneath them, there is often a man who never learned how to be safely human. He fears that if he speaks, he will lose respect. He fears that if he cries, someone will remember it forever. He fears that if he admits fear, he will become less desirable. He fears that if he asks for help, he will confirm the secret shame he has carried for years. Maybe I am not strong enough. This is the lie. Seeking help does not mean you are weak. It means the part of you that still wants to live fully has not given up. It means your wisdom is finally becoming louder than your pride. And for many men, that is the first real act of courage. 8. Redefining masculinity without losing strength. Some men hear conversations about emotional openness and think it means masculinity is being attacked. But that is not the point. The point is not to destroy masculinity. The point is to rescue it from a narrow, suffocating definition. A man can be strong and emotionally honest. A man can provide and still have needs. A man can lead and still admit uncertainty. A man can protect others and still require support. A man can be disciplined without becoming numb. A man can be dangerous to chaos without being cruel to himself. This is the expanded version of strength. Not softer. Deeper. Because a man who understands his emotions is harder to manipulate. A man who knows his wounds is less likely to bleed on people who did not cut him. A man who can speak honestly does not need anger to translate his pain. A man who has faced himself carries a different presence. Quiet. Grounded. Unshaken. Not because nothing hurts him, but because he no longer has to lie about what does. That is the kind of masculinity society claims to respect but rarely teaches. It is not weakness. It is integration. The warrior without the lover becomes brutal. The king without self-knowledge becomes controlling. The magician without connection becomes detached. The provider without inner life becomes a machine. A complete man does not amputate parts of himself to fit a broken definition. He learns how to govern himself fully. 9. The real-life cost of suppression. Let's make this real. A man comes home from work after being humiliated by his boss. He says nothing. He eats dinner quietly. His partner asks if everything is okay. He says, yeah, I'm fine. But he is not fine. The humiliation is still in his body. The anger is still moving through him. The shame is still sitting in his throat. Later, his child spills something. A small mistake. Nothing serious. But he snaps. Not because of the spill. Because the spill became the doorway through which all the buried pressure escaped. This is how suppression damages families. Not always through dramatic abuse or obvious collapse. Sometimes through tension. Distance. Coldness. Short answers. Unspoken resentment. A home where everyone feels the pressure but nobody knows its name. Or imagine a man lying awake at 2:17 a.m., staring at the ceiling, calculating money in his head. Mortgage. Rent. Insurance. School fees. Medical bills. Credit cards. Aging parents. Retirement he is not ready for. He does not wake anyone. He does not speak. He just lies there, quietly negotiating with panic. In the morning, he gets up and acts normal. This is not rare. This is happening everywhere. In suburbs. In apartments. In offices. In trucks. In gyms. In marriages. In men who look successful. In men who look calm. In men who look like they have everything handled. And the tragedy is not just that they suffer. The tragedy is that many believe they are supposed to. 10. The open loop, the mistake most men make. The biggest mistake most men make is not that they feel too much. It is that they wait until the pain becomes unmanageable before they respect it. They ignore the early signals. The tight chest. The short temper. The numb weekends. The loss of joy. The constant fatigue. The quiet envy of people who seem free. The feeling that life has become one long obligation. They tell themselves, I'll deal with it later. But later becomes years. And by the time they finally turn toward the pain, it has already shaped their personality, their relationships, their health, and their future. A stoic man does not wait until the house burns down to admit there is smoke. He pays attention early. He studies himself. He asks hard questions before life forces harder consequences. What am I carrying that I refuse to name? Where am I calling fear responsibility? Where am I using silence to avoid honesty? Where am I performing strength instead of building it? Who benefits from me staying emotionally numb? That last question matters. Because in a Machiavellian world, your unexamined pain can become someone else's leverage. If you fear rejection, people can control you with approval. If you fear failure, systems can control you with status. If you fear vulnerability, relationships can control you with distance. If you fear being seen as weak, you will accept burdens that were never yours to carry. Self-knowledge is not decoration. It is defense. 11. What true strength looks like. True strength is not announcing your pain to everyone. It is not oversharing. It is not collapsing into helplessness. It is not making your emotions someone else's responsibility. True strength is more disciplined than that. It is the ability to tell the truth to yourself first. To say, this hurt me. To say, I am angry, but I will not let anger drive. To say, I am tired, and pretending I am not is making me dangerous to myself and distant from people I love. To say, I need help, without turning that sentence into a confession of failure. True strength may look like therapy. It may look like one honest conversation with a trusted friend. It may look like telling your partner, I don't need you to fix this tonight. I just need to stop pretending. It may look like taking a walk instead of starting an argument. It may look like leaving a job that is killing your spirit. It may look like apologizing to your child because your stress came out as anger. It may look like finally admitting that your father's silence taught you survival, but not peace. This is not weakness. This is repair. And repair requires more courage than performance. Anyone can pretend for a while. But it takes a different kind of man to stop performing long enough to rebuild what has been breaking quietly for years. 12. The new code. So what is the new code? Not the old code of, shut up and endure. Not the fake code of, feel everything and lose control. A stronger code. A cleaner code. A code built for men who want to live with discipline without becoming dead inside. First, name what you carry. Not everything needs to be public, but it must become conscious. What remains unnamed controls you from the dark. Second, separate responsibility from self-erasure. Being responsible does not mean destroying yourself to keep everyone else comfortable. Third, stop confusing silence with dignity. Sometimes silence is wisdom. Sometimes it is fear dressed as control. Fourth, Choose one place where you can be honest. One friend. One mentor. One therapist. One journal. One conversation. A man does not need to expose himself to the world. But he does need somewhere he does not have to lie. Fifth, redefine strength as self-command, not self-abandonment. The goal is not to be fragile. The goal is to become fully present, fully aware, fully governed from within. That is silent authority. Not loud. Not desperate. Not numb. Not begging to be understood. But no longer imprisoned by a version of masculinity that only taught you how to bleed quietly. So let's bring this back. Men were taught that strength means silence. But silence without awareness becomes suppression. Suppression becomes distance. Distance becomes loneliness. Loneliness becomes anger, burnout, numbness, or despair. And society often profits from men who never stop to ask why they are in pain. The phrase, "be a man," was supposed to make you stronger. But if it taught you to abandon yourself, then it was never wisdom. It was conditioning. Real strength is not the absence of pain. Real strength is the courage to face pain without being ruled by it. Real masculinity is not emotional death. It is emotional command. The world does not need more men pretending they are fine. It needs men who are honest enough to become whole. So here is the question I want you to sit with. What burden have you been carrying so long that you started calling it your personality? Write it in the comments if you are ready. Not for attention. Not for pity. But because one honest sentence can break years of silent control. And if this message speaks to something you have never said out loud, subscribe to Silent Authority. Because here, we do not worship fake strength. We strip away the illusion. We face the truth. And we rebuild the man underneath.